And welcome to another edition of the Bullheaded Podcast. I'm your host, per usual, Sean Tyson, here with Zoo and Peebush. How you fellas doing?
Doing all right, man. Got a couple nice fantasy wins this week. Can't complain on that front. Bears, man, just looking bad. I'm hoping they get the first overall pick now. So rooting for the Texans, the rest of the way, man. So give me that number one, number two overall draft pick, and we're not going to screw it up this time. I promise you, Zoo. We're not going to screw it up this time.
Yeah, with a new GM, a new guy in charge, man. Hopefully they make some better deals, like
Yep.
training a QB and get some more draft picks out of that.
Mm.
That's what I'm hoping for the Bears to get done. But man, fantasy football this week, absolutely brutal, man. This week, my home league just late 11, man. I had to stop watching football at some point, man. Late 11, dropped 80 something points, just disgraceful, man. Mark Andrews dropping tutties, looking like a bum compared to Travis Kelce. Had Josh Jacobs drop a nuke on one of my teams, ended one of the careers of one of my playoff hopefuls, man. Just absolutely ended it. So it's been a rough week. I only had one surviving team left on one of my playoff pushes, but man, not gonna lie. It's been a tough year for fantasy football this year.
It has been.
My boy Dalvin Cook letting me down a little.
Maybe you should have traded him when you had the chance.
I don't know about that, but I'm really thinking about my Dalvin Cook over Justin Jefferson pick. I've been thinking about that a lot.
Yeah, that's a tough one.
Because Dalvin Cook is the single factor on a lot of my teams, and a lot of them, a lot of mediocre records, a lot of 4 wins and 5 wins right now, very mediocre records. And the common factor is Dalvin Cook, man. Not blaming Quan because that was a home run pick, but I'm looking at Dalvin. He's been okay, but not that great.
Not first round.
Yeah, not RB, not first round.
Not RB1 dropping 22 a game. No, not even close. Not even close.
Tell you, Jefferson. I think I talked about this before. I think Jefferson going to be he's going to be a very big factor next year in fantasy drafts. Just because, like you said, he's breaking records that are like I'm not saying they could have never been obtained, but just of how young he is and the amount of targets he gets. And I know we like talk, and it's not a fantasy segment. We always talk about Kirk Cousins like he's just a middle of the road quarterback. Well, one thing he does really well is getting the ball to Justin Jefferson. So, I think Justin Jefferson like him as a quarterback. So it's gonna be real interesting next year to see how the fantasy drafts go with like you say, Cook and Jefferson being teammates and things like that. But we kind of wanted to talk about the playoffs. Like you say, we're getting down to the very end of the NFL season, which is crazy to say the least. But there's a couple teams that have been consistently in the playoffs. They kind of been, in the hunt. And a lot of those teams is just about jockeying if they're going to get the number 1 seed, number 2 seed, number 3 seed, things of that nature. But, towards the end of the playoffs, or not playoffs, but the rankings, you've seen some teams fall in and out of the 6th, 7th, 8th spot, and some teams that are in the hunt that are now kind of really in the back end of not getting in. So I wanted to ask the guys, who are some guys that who are some teams that are out of the playoffs currently in the AFC and NFC, and who could they see making a push one of those teams that are currently in the playoffs? And people, Sean, we'll start with you.
It's tough, man. I'll start with the NFC, and then I think we can dive into the AFC after that because the AFC could get interesting, but the NFC is really, really heavy on the NFC East this year. As of after Week 12, when we're recording this, the Commanders are holding that last wild card spot right now.
Wild,
pretty wild. They've had a heck of a couple game run. Their defense has really been carrying them. I know they haven't played the best of competition. But the thing I'm looking out for this team, because I do think this is a team that I have falling out, is they got to play the Giants twice. That's 2 huge division games for teams that are holding the 6th and 7th spots right now. But the Commanders, man, I just don't know if I can believe it. I mean, Brian Robinson has been a hell of a find. Great comeback story coming off that horrific shooting that he had to deal with and, that robbery. And he's putting up 100 a game, Zoo. I saw, unfortunately, he was on your bench this week in fantasy football. Hate to see it.
I have to say this. I hate DeAndre Swift, man. Brother never played.
And Debo
Flex
Samuel,
play only, man.
Oh, man. And I traded away James Conner, and that brother are getting it done right now.
He is getting it done. But yeah, man, I mean, so that's kind of the team that I see shifting out. But I will say that it really just depends on how those 2 divisional games between the Giants and Commanders go. If the Commanders sweep or heck, they even split, we could be talking about the Giants dropping out. Daniel Jones has been a little inconsistent. Once again, apologies there, Sue, as well. But, the team that I see kind of shifting in is the Seahawks. I'm looking at their remaining schedule. They get to play the Rams twice. No Cooper Kupp to deal with. They play the Panthers. And then they do have 2 tough games against the Niners and the Chiefs. And then they have kind of what I think is actually going to be the swing game against the Jets. And these are 2 teams that are very much, we'll talk about the AFC in a minute, but that game could end up defining who ends up making their respective wildcard spots in their respective conferences. So I do believe that the Seahawks team, I know my pick last week was an easy spread pick for the Seahawks, and the Raiders just came out and dropped 40 on them. Josh Jacobs, to Zoo's point, with the nuke. But I really like the Seahawks offense, man. I think, Kenneth Walker, damn good running back, great find once again. DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, great duo. And Sean, I think you've mentioned this a couple of times, but they have a really good young secondary. They hit on some huge picks in the secondary, really good value plays there. So, just looking at, the NFC South, I don't really see the Falcons making a push. I guess they could take the division over the Bucs, but they're not really going to be fighting for a wild card. Hey, if you think they're going to do it, they could.
I don't know. Someone may make a case. I don't know who will, but
yeah. But it's going to come down to the Giants, the Commanders, and the Seahawks. That's really who we're talking about at this point, especially with the Packers, kind of now out of the picture with that loss to the Eagles. And Jordan Love came in and he had a nice little end of the game there, Zoo. Jordan Love.
Let's not get carried away.
Okay.
Let's not get carried away. On the stat sheet, they're like, 60+ yard to Christian Watson. Christian Watson did all the work.
Yeah, he did.
A little Tyreek action. That dude is fast, man.
He is hell of a player, if they can figure out their situation, we might be talking about them being in the wild card situation for next year. But yeah, man, I think I got to go on the NFC side with the Seahawks. I just like the way Geno's playing. They clearly have really good camaraderie as a team that I think may have been a bit shaky at the beginning of the year, but they figured it out damn quickly that Geno Smith was their guy. And I just think I trust him a little bit more as an overall team than I do the Commanders and possibly even the Giants, because however those divisional games that the NFC East has to play, no matter who's in them, Cowboys, they have some tough games playing, who knows, the Giants, Commanders could cause some ruckus there too. So I just think one of those 2 teams is probably going to fall out of the wild card picture, and the Seahawks are going to come in just with their remaining schedules.
Yeah, I totally agree. Like the Commanders, man, they got to play the Eagles a couple more times.
Yeah. Yep.
And Eagles are going for that number 1 seed overall, so you get that bye. So they're going to be extra motivated. You see the Commanders, that's barbecue chicken, man. That's barbecue chicken. So you got the Eagles, man. So like the Seahawks, Geno Smith, man, Pete Carroll, they got something to prove to Russell Wilson. I feel like they're playing a little edge, man. Like, we don't need you, Russ. We're cooking without you, man. 6-5, like offense. No, they got a good offense. It's crazy to say.
They do.
They actually got a good offense this year. Obviously, your boy Sean Kenneth Walker, I got to shout you out again. This rookie, man, productive. Touchdown machine, man. Goal line back. RB1, baby. RB1, baby.
RB1.
Oh, man. He played like a top 12 running back, man.
For 13 weeks.
Walker, man. So, because I'm looking at the Giants and the Commanders. Taylor Heineke, I don't know how this brother keeps winning. Like, you talk about QB wins. That's why I overrate QB wins. Taylor Heineke is terrible. He is terrible, man. Every time I watch him play, throwing bad passes to pick, like, as you mentioned, the defense is carrying Taylor Heineke, man. Like I don't. People say, people like Heineke a little more than Carson Wentz because his attitude. Like Taylor Heineke, talent-wise, is trash, man, compared to Carson Wentz. He's just
talent-wise, I would say.
Talent-wise, he is awful, man. Like, I am shocked they're on a 3-game winning streak with Taylor Heineke as your starting quarterback, because the dude is a backup. He's a backup. He's a backup, and somehow he got the job, and they're winning games. So they're going to keep rolling with him. But Taylor Heineke, stop it, man. And
their running game has been pretty much
right, Rob. Antonio Gibson.
Yeah,
nice little two-headed running attack.
Which the only thing is the Eagles are really rough against the run. So I am interested to see how they end up.
Yeah,
because that's the only way the Commanders are going to win is if they just run the ball down.
Ain't going to be throwing, man. Ain't going to be throwing. I don't know. The Eagles lost a good corner, man. I don't know how many weeks he's out. But Taylor Heineke ain't going to beat you in the passing game, man. And same thing with this dude, Daniel Jones, man. As a Saquon Barkley shareholder, I have to watch a lot of New York Giants games. And watching Daniel Jones throw the football is a disgrace to football, man. This dude cannot throw the ball downfield. This dude got slow reaction time. This dude, he's a nice runner. Like, they should use him more in the running game. But too bad he didn't even get 25 rushing yards last game, because that's the only reason I like Daniel Jones as a running back, as a quarterback. Because this dude can't throw the ball downfield. Can't do it. Like, he pretty nice, actually. Obviously, no Wandell, so he lost his favorite target. Got to rely on Slayton, who's actually not that bad, but then you got the Galladay's of the world, who's absolute trash, and Saquon Barkley not having any big games right now. Like this guy's been stuffed a lot, man. The past couple weeks, man, a lot of duds, man. He's not able to break free, and pretty much they rely on Saquon breaking free for like one of those 40-yard rushing touchdowns because offensively it is hard for this Giants team to get down the field. They got lucky. They won some close games, but coming back, like Daniel Jones trying to lead a comeback, stop it. He can't lead no comeback, man.
2-minute drill.
Yeah. Oh, just ugly to watch, man. It is really bad to watch. Like their passing game, like both the passing games of the Commanders and the Giants, man, I'm out of them. I believe in Geno Smith. This guy throws for 250 a game, man. So Seattle Seahawks, man, I completely agree with you on the offense that they are running right now.
Unfortunately,
they've been very productive.
Unfortunately, we're going to have to watch either Daniel Jones or Taylor Heineke in the playoffs at some point. So it's going to be who plays worse during those two divisional games, man. That's going to be the outcome.
Yeah, it definitely has been solidified that although you can respect Daniel Jones and Taylor Heineke because they are leaders of their team, like they're in the quarterback position. If I'm in the front office, if I'm a scout or anybody who's over like looking at the draft, like I would be trying to actively tell my GM and my, decision makers, like we need a quarterback because like you say, if those teams get a quarterback that, like you say, could just do simple things like challenge, not even really complete passes down the field, but just challenge it to where like maybe you can get a flag drawn or maybe they can respect it. If you get a quarterback that can do that and maybe grow into completing passes down the field, those teams will be very dangerous because it's obvious that they've drafted very well everywhere else. And like you say, with Daniel Jones, Wan'Dale getting hurt really hurt a lot because he can't throw it down the field, but he's pretty good at throwing those intermediate, and passes behind the line of scrimmage and let Wan'Dale do the work.
Mm-hmm.
And, with him being gone and you don't have Kadarius Toney, it's kind of like you're relying on Slayton and like that. That's just tough. And also I don't think it's if you just get better weapons around them. Like no, those guys have a ceiling.
No.
I feel like Jalen Hurts was a guy like he had potential, but then when you got better weapons around him, you see he became a better quarterback. Like I don't think if they go draft a number one next year for either team, like because like you say, even with Washington, they have Dodson and McLaurin. Like those are two legit guys, and I have Dodson on my fantasy team, and he's done absolutely nothing with Taylor Heineke at quarterback. So that's just all you need to know about, their passing potential with the Redskins, but or not the Redskins, but the football team, whatever, Commanders. The Commanders. That's a forgettable name. Sorry, I couldn't remember. Yeah. But anyways, so I was thinking of like I felt like I just kind of had an inkling that you guys would probably either pick the Seahawks or maybe talk about Washington. So I was like, let me look at some teams and look at schedules and be like, let's see who could actually maybe make some noise. And the only reason why I'm going with this team in the Falcons is because if you remember that game against Tampa Bay, they should have won that game. Yeah. They should have won that game. They got bailed out by the refs when Tom Brady, was sacked. Brady complained and he got the call, and the Bucs were able to, do whatever and take that game. And like at that time, I guess you're thinking like, oh, this might not be a big deal because the Bucs are just going to run away with the division anyways. But watching how the Bucs looked against Cleveland, like Jacoby Brissett can be respected. I understand. He's not a bum. Like he's a legit quarterback that can come in and do enough to get you through, but he's never going to win you a championship or get you to the playoffs, but he can be a serviceable quarterback. And I know Amari Cooper's good, whatever. Nick Chubb, all that stuff. But the Bucs just don't look the same. And their record kind of reflects that. So to me, it's like the only game that worries me if I'm Atlanta is the Baltimore game. And that's just because Baltimore's a way better team than them. Obviously, I know Pittsburgh won last night, it wasn't last night. Yeah. Like, I get it. Tomlin, they just always figure out how to fight and do whatever, but I'm not scared by that name. New Orleans, Andy Dalton, no. And by week 17, and 18, like 18 is obviously Tampa Bay. But like by week 17, Arizona could be tapped out. Kingsbury could be looking for a new job. Who knows? Like, Kyler could be just, my hamstring still hurts, like be sitting on the sideline. So that could be a gimme. That could be a gimme. So it's just like, it's all going to come down to that week 18, the last game. Now, I know they're saying like in the NFC, like Carolina still got a chance. All these teams in the NFC South still have a chance. But realistically, I feel like Atlanta, because I feel like they played them the best. And I know Carolina beat them, but that was a weird game in itself. And I'm not a believer in Sam Darnold. But, Atlanta has been kind of, all right. Like, it really would have helped if they would have beat Washington this past week.
Yeah.
But Atlanta's kind of, on that. If they can somehow get through that Baltimore game, they have a chance. I think they have a decent chance. And it's like you say, everybody in that division, you could theoretically say they all have a chance. But if I had to pick a team that's not Tampa, I think it could be Atlanta, and that game would be at home.
They're
So,
a half game back. They're a half game.
Rise up, Atlanta. That's your slogan. Figure it out. I think they have a chance. But, the Seahawks, I think they're probably your best bet. Like you say, Washington and New York's kind of going to, factor itself out. But I just don't see anybody else in the NFC even having a chance outside of Atlanta. That's kind of a dark, and that's kind of a long shot if you look at it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So.
AFC though, Zoo, who you got?
Yeah, AFC is.
That's
because it's a lot. It's a lot of teams.
Yeah, for me, man, I go with one of the injured, battered teams. Man, I go with the Chargers, man.
Yeah. Good pick.
Yeah,
that's my super.
Me too.
I'm telling you, man, this team the injury look. I just feel like it's never with this team every year. Keenan Allen, obviously, with hamstring, pretty much missed like half the season. Now he's back and he looks pretty good. So hopefully he stays healthy. And obviously, Mike Williams re-aggravated the ankle last week. He's out again. So I don't know when he's going to be back. But my, this team is too talented not to make the playoffs. This is a team that when they play the Kansas City Chiefs, they look like they're in the same tier. Like every time they lose, it's by a field goal. And it's because of Patrick Mahomes' great news with the role of Travis Kelce splash in there too. So every time they play, they look like they're on the same level playing field. Justin Herbert, I feel like every time he steps against elite quarterbacks, and he just needs his weapons to be healthy. And Austin Eckler this year, PPR machine again. This guy catching like 5, 6, 7, 8 balls a game, man.
Ridiculous.
As a running back, man. Like he has been a phenomenal, productive player this year in real football as well as fantasy football. So I feel like this Chargers team, man, is way too talented to miss the playoffs with a young stud like Justin Herbert, man. So I got them in, and their schedule is not that crazy. Play the Raiders. That team somehow found a way to beat the Seattle Seahawks, but man, I'm out on the Raiders this year. Like the Rams, free dub. Denver Broncos, they're going to be tanking. Colts, Jeff Saturday. So you got all these teams. The tough one's going to be the Dolphins, who's elite,
and Titans,
and even I'm not completely sold on the Titans yet. Their record looks nice, but as a playoff team, I'm not that scared of the Titans. But I feel like the Dolphins is the only team I'm like, okay, they might be objectively the better team. But I look at the remaining schedule, the only team that scares me is the Dolphins. So I feel like, man, to get a little more healthier, get their weapons back, because obviously when you saw when Herbert got his weapons back, man, that aerial attack just looked so much better.
It was beautiful.
Night and day of what he was doing before, because they were not that productive offensive team this year. No. Obviously, with the number of weapons that they lost, it's not surprising. We're having to rely on Josh Palmer as your wide receiver one, man. So obviously, Keenan Allen back. Hopefully, Mike Will comes back to give Herbert some help, because this team, man, I want to see this team in the playoffs. They're fun to watch. Too. They're really, really fun to watch. So
I mean, my pick would be the Chargers too, Zoo. I do think that they're probably going to be the team to sneak in. Right now, I think the Patriots and the Jets are at the 7th spot right now, but I just don't really see. I think the Bills have the 6th seed right now, which is just ridiculous. I keep contemplating about the Jets because, all right, we got one game out of Mike White, right? It was against the Bears.
Defense.
Bears defense, all I'll say is, man, if you're playing DraftKings this week, play every offensive player, play the Packers defense, play Aaron Jones, play everybody you can against the Chicago Bears right now, because everybody's hurt and they're pretty much just sitting everybody right now. But man, I'm just looking at this Jet. They have a pretty tough schedule. Like towards the end, they're 7-4 right now. They got the Vikings, the Bills, they have the Lions and the Jags, which I think the Jags could be a bit of a trap game for them. And then you got the Seahawks and the Dolphins. I mean, that's not an easy schedule. I see maybe a guaranteed, and this isn't even a guarantee because we've seen what the Lions can do to teams, putting up decent amount of points as well. But that's like 2 wins. That puts them at about 9. And I think the magic number on the AFC side this year is 10 wins to make the playoffs. And to your point, Zoo, earlier, I just think the Chargers have, at worst, coming 4-2 in their last 6 games. I think they could lose to the Titans. I'm not saying that they would. And then I think that their, Miami Dolphins matchup is a pretty tough one for them to work through, especially if they don't have Mike Williams healthy. I think that's a big thing because it just attracts so much attention away from Keenan Allen. It gives Josh Palmer being a legit wide receiver 3 where he can do probably the most damage. It just attracts attention away. As a Herbert shareholder, man, absolutely beautiful to watch this past week, just seeing them run up and down because they can actually get chunk yardage. And I think that's the big thing is they were only moving the ball with Eckler checkdowns. He'd get you maybe 8 to 12 yards every catch, decent runs, and they would just eat up more clock, so they weren't putting up as many points. But now they can really move the ball up and down the field as long as Keenan stays healthy. So I do have the Chargers pick as well because once again, I just think similar to what we were talking about with the NFC East, the AFC East divisional matchups with the Patriots, the Jets. Patriots have to play the Bills twice. They have not played the Bills yet this year. I don't really see them coming out and moving up in there as well in the AFC. So I think I got to go with the Chargers as well.
I'm there with you. I think it's a clean sweep, and mine has got a little bit of bias in it because, I picked them to be in the Super Bowl. But I also, man, with the Chargers, they have, like you said, they have a lot of talent. They just always kind of been hit with the injury bug. But when you see still plays like Derwin James made, I think on Hopkins, even though Hopkins made a heck of a one catch, but when he made that one interception on Hopkins, it just kind of makes you think man, it's just the potential of that team is so good. Yeah. And like you say, Eckler's been one of those guys that's, I guess you wouldn't say fantasy-wise has been underrated. People have been talking about him a lot. But it just kind of feels like he's not talked about in the league like it's one of the top running backs, which is kind of insane to me. But I don't know, man. They know how to give games away, but they also know how to play in games where it's man, if you see their potential when they do play. Now they've been, I think if they can get Mike Williams back, that's going to help a lot, and it's going to give them a more reliable pass catcher. And then, like you say, with Keenan Allen come on, maybe their offense gets hot late. But a lot of that too is the other teams in the AFC. Even though I said just a minute ago when we were about to talk about this subject, I want to say the AFC has a lot of teams that could get in there, but it's also a lot of teams where do you trust it? You could be if you want to take a flyer, yeah, you could pick the Patriots or whoever, but it's that's a bad flyer because guess who they got to play twice in the last couple of weeks? Buffalo. Yep. So, yeah, Buffalo's definitely one of those teams, even though they've disappointed a little bit this year, they're still trying to jockey in position for, home field advantage and things like that. So, I just don't see a scenario where anybody in the AFC outside the Chargers can make a run. Like you say, Now, I would have been singing a very different tune if Deshaun got suspended 6 games. Then I feel like maybe they would have been a really nice dark horse. But with him coming back in, this week, the Browns are not just going to run off all those games. Even though it would be crazy and it would be nice and interesting for the NFL if he just started tearing off a bunch of wins and people in front of them started to lose because they are 4-7. And I think most people probably had them around that, being that ranking and, probably thinking to themselves yeah, they're probably going to win 3 or 4 games, without Deshaun. But, it could get weird. What if, like you said, the Chargers don't get fully healthy and then teams just keep losing? You never know. Now, I don't expect Deshaun to come in and start killing right away because that's just – the guy hadn't played in a year and a half. It's just not going to be a situation where he comes in and is just tearing up. Now, people will say Houston, they're just not a good team, but their defense is pretty decent. And they kind of they play tough. They're – because I've always kind of been tempted to take them in some streaming options on fantasy. So it's they play tough. But, I just don't expect Deshaun to come in and be that type of game breaker for the Browns in game 1. So, or game 1 back for him. So, the Chargers, I think, is the safest bet just in terms of being a team that could definitely sneak their way into the playoffs and be a dark horse.
But hey, we got to see what Mike White does, man. That's what we got to see.
Yeah. And another guy, it was the running back. What was his name? Zonovan. I think his name is Zonovan Knight. He was there. He was a guy who I think they had on the practice squad all year, and he got brought up. He looked really good. I think he rushed 13 times, 69 yards, and had a couple catches. He played over James Robinson, which was weird because James Robinson wasn't hurt. So I was that's kind of alarming. Why is a guy who was on the practice squad playing over James Robinson? I don't understand that. Yeah, that was weird. So I was I saw him. So maybe they found something with I know he's not a Breece Hall, but it's maybe he's a back that could give them a boost along with Mike White, doing what he does. But
yeah, man, all I know is in one of my trades, I've read a bunch of bums, man. James Robinson, DeAndre Swift.
He took all my bums, man.
Bunch of lemons, man. Along with Brandon Cooks. Bunch of unsolvable dudes. Debo regressed back to the mean.
Yeah.
Oh man, that team is
I think James Robinson's gonna play though. Maybe that was just something.
Yeah.
Maybe he had like something going on. There's no way he's gonna
I
just
don't know
not.
how Brees Hall is out
They knew-
and his brother James Robinson's not playing. Like,
I mean,
Michael Carter
they
got
knew they were
hurt,
playing
so, I mean,
Chicago.
yeah, Carter got raised.
Yes. So maybe that means if I don't know what his injury is, but even he is more than likely going to be limited if he does play this week. Like maybe James Robinson gets back in that rotation. But I thought that was interesting because I saw him. I was like, "Why? Who is Zonovan Knight?" And I looked up his, history and stuff. I was like, "He was practice squad a couple weeks ago," and he's like coming out, look, his highlights, pretty good. He looked explosive. Like that's the thing about running back, man. It doesn't freaking matter. Like there's a million running backs everywhere. So I mean, you just gotta find them. Gotta find them, and if they fit you, like say, they also gotta fit your system. So we'll definitely be looking into that. Here comes our bet, or I guess you could say not fantasy, but betting segment of the show. And we're gonna be switching this up a lot. We're gonna be doing some over-unders, some spreads tonight. We're gonna be doing money line. So I asked the guys what were some intriguing, interesting money line games they are, responsibly going to place bets on. And P. Wishon, we'll start with you.
Oh, all right. Well, I prefaced this at the beginning, so take this with a grain of salt, but I think this could be a sneaky play this week. I'm actually going to take Titans money line over the Eagles. And hear me out here, all right? Because I think the Titans are probably one of the worst matchups that the Eagles will have to face this year. They are a defensive, run-heavy team that takes up a lot of time of possession. And the Eagles are obviously a rushing attack team, and when they force Jalen, I know we've seen that he can throw the ball now, and I think that that's been proven. But when that's asked to be the main focus of their game, I'm not saying he struggles, but it just gets them out of their limbo. They put up 360 team rushing yards on the Green Bay Packers this past week. That's absolutely ridiculous. That's like what the Bears were doing to some teams this year. All right. But you're looking at this Titans team, man, except for this past week against the Bengals when they gave up 100, they had not given up 80 rushing yards to a team since September 25th. That's 2 months of one of the best rush defenses in the league. And then you got to go, all right, well, the Eagles side, their big defensive liability is their rushing defense, and you're going up against the guy that is probably the worst to go up against if you have a bad rush defense, and that's Derrick Henry. So I'm looking at this team. They're at plus 200 as of this afternoon. It's a pretty decent bet. I'm not saying to parlay it with everything else, but if you're looking for kind of a team that it could actually use a big win, because I think they're 1-4 against above 500 teams this year, but they've all been pretty close games. Speaking of the Titans, I think this is kind of a prove it game to everybody that, look, yeah, we're at the top of our division, but not a lot of people, to Zoo's point, are buying into us for the playoffs. Well, this is a kind of a prove it game. And I think they're just going to rely on Henry. They're going to eat up the clock. And it's actually just the pros and the cons of each of these teams match up opposite. So I'm interested to see if the Titans can pull this off. I don't expect it to be that high scoring of a game either. So that's my value money line pick for the week, Sue.
Interesting pick, man. Pick, man. First of all, I got to shout out the Vikings, baby. Okay, maybe some money last week. Shout out to that kick return, baby. That 97 yard. I was sweating a little that game, man. That game was close, I thought, until that beautiful punt return. Give me a little 7-point lead. Get that dub, man. That beautiful, beautiful 2.5 spread easy cover, man. But for me this week, man, I'm betting against the Vikings, man. I'm taking the New York Jets, baby. Taking the New York Jets, man. I'm telling you right now. After watching that Vikings defense, that Mac Jones was shredding.
Yeah.
I've never seen Mac Jones look so good.
He looked really good.
He was making deep dives. I was like, this Vikings defense is atrocious. And then you look at the stats. Yards per game, man. You got number 1, Detroit Lions. Worst defense, allowing over 400 yards a game. Number 2 is the Vikings. They are that trash at defense. For a team that's 9-2, their defense is the second worst in the NFL.
Wow.
That's
crazy. That's crazy. I'm on this Mike White bandwagon right now, man.
Let
it fly, baby. Let it fly. I'm telling you, Garrett Wilson, if he had a legit quarterback from beginning to end, this dude's going to have an all-time rookie year. But too bad he had to play with Zach Wilson. So his value this year, overall, statistically affecting his money and fantasy-wise affecting his value, is he had a quarterback that couldn't throw the football. But if he got Mike White, who just got to be average, man. Just got to be average. Be an average quarterback. You get boosted by the Vikings pass defense, which elevates all quarterbacks. So now you can be above average. You got Garrett Wilson. You got Corey Davis. Elijah Moore sighting.
Finally.
This dude is probably one of the biggest busts
Coming out of the
in
woodwork.
football. This dude, he's like, man, free Elijah Moore. So I'm telling you, this pass game against this defense, I'm all in, man. I'm all in. The Vikings, man, they're healthy right now. They don't got that motivation to keep winning games. Like the Jets are fighting for their playoff lives right now.
That's true.
Robert Saleh trying to prove people wrong right now. And
they need a big win.
Exactly. They have more motivation than the Vikes, who's sitting pretty right now. Only 2 losses all year.
Yep.
All year, man. They had a terrific season. NFC North, easy in the bag. They're going to win that division easily, guaranteeing a playoff spot, while the Jets are fighting for playoff lives right now. So they got a little more motivation, man. So I'm going with the New York Jets with the upset over the Vikes, man.
So if you're really looking for some value, Titans-Jets parlay this week could be very interesting. But I mean, I got that. And Zoo, another one to consider, I think, is Bengals against the Chiefs. I think that.
What?
You don't think so?
Man, I have one rule. I have one rule in football: don't bet against Patrick Mahomes, man. That's not
really.
One rule. I just don't bet against that man.
Really?
I don't bet against that man. This dude is too good, man. The brother has 13 seconds game to go to overtime, man. I'm telling you, you can't bet against Patrick Mahomes. I have one rule in football, man.
That's fine.
Can't do it. Even though I love Joe Burrows, man. Joey B. Man.
And who knows? I mean, they could get. I mean, I don't know. I haven't checked Jamar Chase's status as of today.
Oh yeah, he's on track to play this week.
And Mixon could be on track to play, so they could be getting both of those guys back healthy. It could be something to consider, man. I don't know.
Is that at Cincinnati or in Kansas City? That's gonna probably be a big factor because the Bengals are.
It's at Cincinnati.
So it might not, I mean, the Bengals have been up and down this year. Like you say, I've never bet against Patrick Mahomes, but the Bengals has kind of that charge of quality, but just better. Like I think at their peak, they're really, really good. It's just they've just had injuries like everybody else, and Mixon, like you say, his is not too serious. But with Chase, everybody was kind of thinking he might be out till playoffs. But him coming back early, that might be a good play. I think if I had to pick just selfishly because of fantasy, I want the Titans over the Eagles because that would probably more than likely think Treylon Burks had a pretty good game. Yeah. Just considering
he looks really good when he's healthy.
Yeah, he's solid.
Yeah.
He's supposed to be the A.J. Brown replacement. That's why they traded.
He's
A.J.
doing
Brown
well in that.
After him the first round, he had a terrific game last couple of weeks. So yeah,
he could be like you say. Tannehill, he gets a lot. He kind of gets a lot of that Kirk Cousins flack. Even though I do, Kirk Cousins is better. Like I would rather have Kirk Cousins, but it's like Tannehill. He's a pretty good quarterback, and I think Treylon Burks, him being that. Because I think a lot of people thought Robert Woods was going to be that guy for them. And I think Nene Westbrook was going to be kind of the slot guy. But Treylon Burks was drafted early for a reason. And he has all the profile traits of a number one receiver. So it's going to be interesting. Like you say, if I had to pick, I'd probably go with the Titans in that money line. But like I said, we're going to be bringing this segment to you guys pretty much every week. Like I said, it's going to be different things with spreads, money lines, over and unders, things of that nature. So make sure you guys tune into that. As always, posting on all the social accounts, TikTok, Bullheaded864, Instagram, Bullheaded_pod, YouTube, same thing with the shorts, getting up there, really trying to change the content up on that. Also, this live video that you're watching will be on there. And with our gambling aspect of the show, I'm going to be putting it on all the socials, so make sure you follow all of those and listen to our podcast on Spotify, Apple, Google Podcasts, the whole nine. And for me, Zoo and P. Bush, we are out.